Welcome to the SFA synonym sort. Did you know not all synonyms are created equal? It's true. Some synonyms carry different meanings based on the context in which they're used. Welcome to the SFA synonym sort. Did you know that not all synonyms are created equal? It's true. Depending on the context of the sentence and the hidden meaning or the connotation of the words that you're choosing, sometimes we can create completely different meanings in our sentences simply by changing one synonym for one word. So in this SFA, we're going to explore how do we evaluate synonyms? How do we look at the list of words that are provided in a thesaurus and understand the connection between them and also which ones to choose? So let's get started. This page outlines for you what's going to happen each day. So on day one, we're going to do some analysis of what a synonym is. There are some guided notes that go along with that, and also one of our favorite Mark Twain quotations. And we'll also walk through the steps of how we're going to analyze a synonym each day. And then on days 2 through 5, it's the same process. We'll just take a new word each day. We will sort and analyze what are the connections between the synonyms, what are the real world contexts in which these words would be used, and then there'll be some extension questions and also a chance to revise the sentence that was provided at the beginning with one of the synonyms to make it stronger. So a lot of activity, even though it's only based on one word each day, there's a lot of activity and a lot of opportunity for students to really understand what kind of analysis they need to do to figure out the right synonym for their writing. Here is the page that has both the student sheets as well as the answer key. And do keep in mind that the answer key is just going to give one option of what is possible, because with synonyms, just as the instructions said on the slide prior, it's okay for there to be differing opinions or ideas. That's part of this analysis, is that there is not going to be one right answer. It really is for students to have discussions and say, well, wait a minute, I think they go in this order, or I feel like this word's more intense and you think it's less intense. That's the goal, is to just have those rich discussions and understand that still, even once we do this analysis, words can have different meanings and evoke different feelings for people. All right, so let's get started with day one. What is a synonym? Well, most often, and maybe you're saying it right now, the definition that we hear about from students and from teachers is that they are words that mean the same or about the same. But I am here to tell you that is not accurate. That is not a true definition of what a synonym is, because think about it. Why do we have all these other words, right? They obviously mean something different. If they all meant the same thing, we would just have one word. So there are differences between the words, and that's what our goal with this SFA, and as a writer, we need to always keep in mind, is what is the difference? How are these words related but different? Okay. So that's really what we want students to understand about synonyms. They are words that are related, yes, for sure. But we want students to think that while they do have similar meanings, we want to kind of see them on a spectrum, right? They kind of go through almost like a color wheel, right? Of going from a light to a dark color. That's what we want students to see, that they are on the spectrum. And that's our job to figure out, well, what is that spectrum? How are they connected? How do they change in intensity or degree of information, right? Or of detail. Words, they are words that also differ by connotation, meaning there's a hidden meaning, there's a hidden definition of what that word means based on cultural or kind of even language-based uses of it. And then lastly, they are words that require context. Synonyms require context, meaning some synonyms work for certain topics while others would not. Some might become offensive in certain situations, while in others they would be perfectly fine. Some will sound academic and appropriate for your school writing, while others would sound way too informal, and vice versa, right? So we want to make sure that students are aware that yes, they're words that are related. They do have similar meanings, but they're on a spectrum, and we need to look at the connotation and the context to really understand when synonyms are appropriate to use. And really, what we're doing here can be summed up by one of our favorite quotations at Writing with Design. It's by Mark Twain. Maybe you've heard of him. He's a pretty famous American author. And he wrote, the difference between the right word and the near right word is the difference between lightning and a lightning bug. Now, I think lightning bugs are one of the most fascinating insects around, right? They have bioluminescence, right, which is not very common in the insect world, but they have these glowing abdomens, which is incredibly cool. But they have definitely not the same level of intensity and light that a lightning strike does. And as writers, that's what we're aiming for. We want the right word. We don't want the near right word. We want that lightning strike of a word, because it's that big of a difference in terms of the brightness, in terms of the intensity, in terms of the attention that it will get. And so that's really what Mark Twain is saying here. We don't want to aim for just the soft glow of a lightning bug. We want the power and intensity of the right words that are like lightning strikes. So, what are we going to do? We're going to take a word each day. That'll be our focus word, and we'll look at the sentence for context. So, in this case, for our example for day one, we're taking the word smell, and the context of the sentence is indicating that we're using it as a noun this time. What is that smell? Right? We're not saying I smell with my nose. That would make it more of a verb, or would make it a verb. This case, we're making it a noun. What is that smell? And so now we have to think about what are synonyms for the word smell that are used as a noun. So we have provided several, in this case, 5 to look at for the word smell. We've got odor, scent, stench, aroma, and fragrance. And so now is an opportunity to do some discussion about what do these words mean? How do they differ? What's the connection between them? Which one is the closest to the original word that we're using? And so I'm going to come out of the presentation mode here because I want to be able to sort them, and to also show you that you will definitely need to go to some other sites. So I'm going to switch here and go to one of my favorite sites, which is the thesaurus.com. Okay. So once you come to thesaurus.com, you have an opportunity to, it's also dictionary.com. It's just the sister site of this. So if you come into thesaurus, we can put in the word smell. And once it pulls up over here, notice that it's giving us different parts of speech, which is really helpful because we want to make sure that we're just looking at the noun version. That's how we're using it in the sentence. And so you can see some of the words that we used for our writing are listed here: aroma, and scent and stench. So that's really helpful to kind of see some of those words here. We can go ahead and click on, I think I have scent on listed there. Yes, we do have scent. Okay, so we click on scent. We can see that it actually kind of has the whole range of something from an odor to a bouquet, right? So that's quite a range of words. We can also go to dictionary.com and look at scent and see what it pulls up here: a distinctive odor, especially when agreeable. So that's really nice to know because when I hear the word odor, that typically means something not good, right? Like body odor comes to mind, right? The stinky smell. But especially when agreeable, it really is getting more at what a scent is all about, like the scent of roses. That's definitely something that people like, right? It's a pleasant smell. And then perfume is listed. So what we're doing here is we're just taking a look at the words listed here, and we're just doing a little bit more analysis, a little bit more research actually about what these words mean. So scent is going to be pretty close to what we are meaning with the word smell. What is that smell? What is that scent, right? So I'm going to just show you with the word scent, but this is something that you would do for each of the words. And so let's come back over to our sample here. And so we would go through and discuss, odor, like we talked about, kind of means something that's stinky. So does stench, right? Stench makes me think of something like trash, right? An aroma, ooh, that's a nice smell. And so is fragrance, right? The fragrance section of a department store is the same way as saying I'm going to get some perfume, right? So fragrance and perfume are certainly closer synonyms to each other. So that's what we're wanting to do here is just lead students in a discussion. You can let them go online to dictionary.com, thesaurus.com, and just know that those are full websites. So there might be things on there that sometimes are listed as related words, but maybe they're not something that you want students to discuss. And so there might be an opportunity for you to kind of look ahead at this and make sure that they are going to have the words on there that you want, or you can curate your own list of definitions and and research places for students to go and have to pull from for this part of the activity. So once we have a discussion, what we're going to do is sort them on the spectrum. So that's step 3. So if we take a look now at the next slide here, actually I need to come back out of my slideshow. I want to make this though as large as I can, just so you can see here what we're doing. So we have odor, scent, stench, aroma, and fragrance. And we talked already that scent kind of really feels like the most neutral, the most aligned to smell. So I'm going to put it in the middle. And then odor, we definitely said was not smelling so good. And stench too. Like I feel like stench is even worse than an odor, right? So we could do something like this where we are aligning them in just a straight order, or we could have them kind of lined up even like this, where it's kind of like, okay, it's more over on this side, more over on that side. So it just depends on how you would like to organize them. For right now, I'm going to put them into just a full on sequence here. I think aroma would smell nice, and then a fragrance is just going to be like that, just really, really nice smell. So I've put them in order, and now I need to think about like what goes at the two ends here. Excuse me, for our synonym, our spectrum here. So when I think about stench and odor, I'm going to say something like it's really stinky, right? Like these down here are synonyms that mean it smells terrible. Versus the ones down here are a really pleasant smell, right? Or something along those lines, a really great smell or a nice smell, something like that. So I'm going to put that right here as well. And so now I've got the two ends of my spectrum identified with my degrees of what we're changing. We're going from really stinky to a really pleasant smell. All right. So from there, oh, really stinky and really smells good. Okay, perfect. So I was close with what I had as my sample. So now from here, what we want to do is add context or real world examples of when we would use each of these synonyms. So you can see here that we have under stench, something like spoiled milk in a fridge, right? Or rotting fish, just absolutely putrid smells. An odor, something like an overflowing trash can where it's just like, oh goodness, we got to take the trash out, right? It stinks. But it's not to the point that we're just absolutely disgusted by it. Scent, something like lemon dishwasher detergent, right? It's got a smell to it, but it's not offensive. It's not something that people are going to say, oh, what is that, right? It's just dishwasher detergent, right? So a scent is more kind of neutral and kind of forgettable even. And then aroma would be something like bread baking or a turkey in the oven. I always think of aroma with food. So that's a really helpful part of the discussion and the research to do of like we we wouldn't say the aroma of somebody, right? We would say more like the fragrance that that person is wearing. So aroma has to do more with food, particularly, but maybe also with like a well, maybe a bouquet of flowers could have an aroma, but I think again, more food is what my mind keeps coming back to. And then fragrance would be something like a bouquet of flowers or a scented candle. So look at what we have here. These are not the only examples, but this is what we want students to do through discussion of what would be an example of this. And certainly use AI if that's something that you have access to. We recommend that to say what are examples of things that have a stench, or what are examples of things that have aroma. And it's really going to help students understand how to start to thoughtfully utilize AI technology in a way that doesn't do the thinking for them, but it's going to generate a list, and then they can say, ooh, I really like my bag of gym clothes or football gear that I didn't wash or clean for a week. Yeah, that's going to have a stench to it, right? So just getting them to find examples from their own lives, from their world around them is going to help make these synonyms make a lot of sense. And then step 5 is going to be to discuss the difference of the synonyms further by looking at the extension question. So, what would be the effect if you went into a restaurant and you asked the chef, "What's that stench?" Right? Now, there's a lot of ways we could answer this, right? We could say something like, "Oh, the she or he would be incredibly offended, right? They're cooking for all the patrons, and you've just come in and basically said the restaurant stinks, therefore the food stinks," right? But maybe there had been a fire, right? Maybe there is a really awful burnt smell, a stench to the restaurant, and they said, "Oh my goodness, you wouldn't believe what we had to deal with today. One of our pizzas got stuck in the brick oven and it caught on fire and it's just made the whole place have this awful stench to it." Right? So there isn't necessarily a right or wrong answer here, but what we're just looking for is that students understand the true meaning of that synonym that's being used in the extension question, or that they're really understanding the connection between the synonyms based on how they answer that question. And then lastly, we want students to play around with the sentence by choosing one of the synonyms and then adding more context to the sentence to just make sure that the synonym is very clear as to why it was chosen. So if we take a look here, the revised sentence now, instead of "what is that smell," has become "what is that stench coming from the kitchen trash can?" Right? So I actually kind of mixed up. I had odor within the example below it, if you recall from an earlier slide, with trash can listed. But then I really like stench. And I think, sometimes trash cans can have a stench to it, especially if it's been left for a really long time, or it's something like rotting fish in the trash can, right? So this works. And so I really wanted to showcase this to say, you might have a different interpretation of the words. That's really okay. It's about the discussion. It's about, does it make sense to the writer and to the listener or to the reader? So, what is that stench coming from the kitchen trash can? I've changed out the word, I've changed out the synonym to one that I like, and I've given the context of the trash can to help understand why there is a stench. All right. So that's it for day one. There's a tremendous amount to all of the slides. Day one will take quite a bit of time, but then the process will speed up a little bit with each of the days. But you can see there's a lot of work with these words. Don't skip over any steps. Don't rush it. It's really important to take a look at each of the words each day. So day two, the focus word is look. Don't look at me. Don't glance. Don't stare. Don't glare. Don't notice. Don't marvel. Don't gaze. So all of those synonyms can be used right in that same sentence. And so we want students to walk through the same steps, right? What is the connection between the synonyms? Do some research to them. Decide what the continuum will be. What will the 2 degrees be? We usually do red on the left and green on the right, but you can change that up. Sometimes we do that because of a negative to positive connotation, which we just had with the smell. Potentially, we have that again with look as well. And then what we do, actually, here it is. But what I do want you to notice is that on the step 4, we do give the degrees and we do put them in a particular order. You are welcome to edit these slides as well to change it up if students had it in a different order. Perfectly fine. But here's an example of how we feel they most likely would be placed in a particular order. And then here's the extension question for day 2. In a mystery story, which synonym would create the most suspense and why? Not exactly one right answer to this, but we want students to think about, is marvel going to create suspense, or would glare or stare potentially? So just great discussion for students to think about and get their creative ideas going when it comes to using synonyms. And then an opportunity to revise the sentence. Don't notice me. Don't glance at me, because why? What do you want? What can we add to that sentence to help give it more context? Or she exclaimed, "Don't stare at me," as she what? Right. So let students add to the sentence to not number one, change out the synonym, and 2, add more context. Day 3 is eat. Lena went to the cafeteria to eat her lunch. Look at all these great synonyms: munch on, devour, inhale, dine on, scarf down, graze on. Wonderful synonyms for students to think about, replacing that verb of eat. Okay. And then day 4 is angry. The crowd grew angry when the game was delayed again. So we've got some intensity here of how the crowd grew in that feeling of anger. And then lastly, on day 5, she sat on her couch. So, none of these words are really profound words, but that's where we find a lot of the most rich synonym work, is taking those everyday words that we want students to practice making better, by looking at synonyms and thinking about what's going to change in the overall meaning of the sentence if I choose this word over that word. So, there's just 5 of the thousands of words that we have in English that we could work on this activity with. So, for our English language learners, it's incredibly important to understand there are so many words that we can utilize, especially when it comes to our writing. So, we want them to become comfortable with experimenting and trying out synonyms, but to also be really careful, right? For all of us as writers, to be really careful that we choose one that makes sense. So, this activity really walks students through: how do I look at the choice of synonyms and start to understand which words would be okay to use and which ones would not fit for what I'm trying to say. All right. I hope you've enjoyed this SFA. We always love to see samples. Reach out to us at Writing with Design and let us know how synonym sort worked for you.